And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this, the weekend edition on Australian Indian Radio. And of course, we know that today the temperature here in Brisbane is 17 degrees and it's sunny. As I look out the window today, we're going to talk about a lot of things that's taking place in and around here. And of course, we will also look at the PIO TV, that's the new channel that we have collaborated with. And I'd like to get everyone's input onto that to say, how do you feel about that? Well, of course, we know there is that growing concern in Afghanistan of what's happening there, and of course the situation in Sydney and New South Wales, talking about the curfew. We will be looking at the report from there as well and what the Premier is looking at. Also, we will look at some of the functions and events that have been rescheduled. Of course, we know because of the restrictions, a lot of them had to be cancelled, not cancelled, but postponed. Some of them did get cancelled. Some are taking place this weekend, some from next weekend, and some have been put up till further down the track because there were other things in between that prevented them from happening. But as we know, that the situation in Kabul is terrible. When you look at these clips and when you look at what's actually happening there, all these people have been lining up to get on whichever flight they can to whichever country they can go. See, for many of them, it means a passport to another country. So the aspiration to be in one of the Western countries, so this is their chance to get out. So that's why they're so desperate to get out. Others are citizens of other countries who just want to leave that war-torn areas and come back to their places. And there is a big rush to get to the airport, standing in queues, in lines. People have their passports in plastics and some travel documents. When you look at the human beings and being in those lines for those extended hours, what happens when nature's called, many things, food, water, and you'll see that, people or the administrators there are actually hitting people to getting them in line with strips of bamboo and others. So let's go and take a look at this report from Kabul. The queues are massive.
Stay there! Stay there! You need to wait, Paul. I can't get...
So as you can see, people are desperate, and they are desperate to actually leave, and so they are willing to stay in those lines for as long as it takes. Well, right now, let's go to New South Wales, where curfews are being introduced.
For weeks, the Premier's resisted calls for a Melbourne-style curfew.
The facts are that will not change the dial.
You rule out curfews?
Look, they haven't demonstrated they work. If we thought that they would have a significant or even marginal impact, of course we'd do those things, but there is no evidence to suggest that's the case.
But with daily cases again in the 600s, Gladys Berejiklian has changed her tune.
We will be implementing curfews in those local government areas of concern from Monday.
Meaning most can't leave home at night.
The 2 weeks that was locked down in the beginning, should have done it then.
Curfew, everybody will be upset, very upset. It's not freedom at all then.
Exercise has been slashed to 1 hour a day. And office suppliers, nurseries and hardware stores must move to the click and collect model.
Come Monday, we're well set up to support our customers online, as we have been.
These tough new rules only apply to the dozen councils of concern. They're now home to 85% of new cases. Cumberland and Canterbury Bankstown are the worst affected. Both have more than 100 new infections.
Do I wish that I raised curfews day one? Yeah, probably, but you probably would have laughed me out.
People are going to be very angry when they see images of people walking along the beach in the eastern suburbs after dark, but they can't even take a foot off their driveway after 9 o'clock at night. If we're going to have a curfew, then it should be for all of Sydney.
In a week's time, authorised workers coming and going from the hotspots will need a permit.
We would like to avoid the curfew, but I think we're now at a stage where people need to think about how their behaviour is affecting the greater community.
There is a new rule that will apply to everybody in New South Wales, no matter where you live. From Monday, whenever you leave the home, you must wear a mask outdoors. The only time you can take it off is when you're doing exercise.
We have thrown everything at this. Now, whilst
Everyone's saying
whilst
why
the
did you
evidence,
throw everything at it?
whilst the evidence of curfews is mixed, the evidence to a lot of this thing is mixed. But I don't want us to ever look back and say we didn't try, we didn't put everything into this.
It might take everything and the kitchen sink to start turning these numbers around. Cayman Gok, ABC News, Sydney.
So let's take a close look at some of the changes. Sydney's lockdown is being extended to the end of September, but the Central Coast and Shell Harbour will now be treated as regional locations instead of part of Greater Sydney. And from midnight, if you want to travel more than 50 kilometres from the Sydney metro area, you'll need a permit. In the city's dozen hotspots, the curfew will be enforced from 9 o'clock at night to 5 in the morning, and that means from Monday you'll only be able to leave your home if you're an authorised worker, or you need medical treatment, or there's an emergency. There are also big changes on the way for healthcare, childcare and disability support workers. Everyone in those professions must get vaccinated. We have reporters in two of the hotspots tonight. First is Cecilia Connell in Canterbury. Cecilia, testing requirements are changing yet again.
Jeremy, testing clinics like this one have been swamped. There's been long lines and people have been waiting days for their results. But surveillance testing will no longer be required in some suburbs. That's to prioritise people who have symptoms. Instead, authorised workers who live in the hotspots will need to take a rapid antigen test if their job is outside their LGA. Businesses have been telling me that they support the move, but they want to know how it will impact smaller operators, and they've been asking who will pay for it. Jeremy.
Cecilia, thank you. Cayman Gok is still with us in Auburn. Cayman police are also getting extra powers.
Jeremy, police will not only be able to fine someone for leaving their council area without a reasonable excuse, but can now also order them to return home and isolate for 14 days. Officers can now lock down apartment complexes and homes if they're deemed COVID hotspots. Now, we saw police ramp up their efforts on the motorways this afternoon, setting up checkpoints and stopping people travelling to the regions. So far, 3,500 infringement notices have been handed out this week, and nearly 1,500 officers will be out and about tomorrow, prepared to disrupt a potential another lockdown protest. A 29-year-old man who travelled from Queensland to take part was today sentenced for at least 3 months behind bars for helping organise this unlawful event. Jeremy?
Cayman Gok and Cecilia Connell reporting.
And can't believe that there was a Queensland man who's now travelled from here, risked everything to organise that unlawful protest. People are just not listening. Chandan, you are rightful in saying that no one wants to listen, and then they're wondering how can they ever reduce those numbers. And the curfew, I do believe, as one of the people who was being interviewed in that report said, that it should just be for everyone. I very strongly believe that, looking at this extension and then the curfew coming in now, that whenever things like this happen, you come in hard, you come in early. because that's the only way you're going to control. And some areas might not be affected, but even then, it's best to just put a hold on the whole lot until you get it into control. Look at New Zealand, Jacinda there, putting down that very hard restrictions. Now they have found that it's not only Auckland, it's also other areas as well. Wellington, so it's gone down up to there as well. And very devastating reports that have been coming out from our neighbouring island nation of Fiji. Reports of deaths close to very, people we really know, and very young. And there was 2 deaths in a family just recently. So, this is getting beyond control in many cases. So when you look at Queensland, we really are lucky here, and we must thank our health department and the Premier for taking in that strong accent, and of course for everyone of doing the right thing. When we talk about doing the right thing, people, it's unimaginable that someone from Queensland actually travelled all the way to Sydney, with all these restrictions and everything, risking everything, and now he'll be put behind bars for 3 months for helping organise that unlawful protest that's going to take place against vaccination and against lockdown. It's hard to believe that there are people with this kind of mentalities. Well, let's take a look at this situation in New South Wales, and let's find out what's actually happening there.
A curfew will be brought in for LGAs of concern in Sydney, and mask rules will tighten. The New South Wales Premier says she doesn't want any regrets.
We're doing everything we can. We've thrown everything at this, and now it's time to bunker down. This is it. We do everything we can to reduce case numbers, and we do everything we can to get those vaccination rates up.
The Greater Sydney lockdown will be extended by another month until the end of September. From Monday, face masks will be mandatory outside except when exercising, and that's across the state, including regional New South Wales. For the local government areas of concern, there are much tougher rules. A curfew will begin on Monday. Residents won't be able to leave their homes between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. The only exemptions are for authorised workers and for emergencies such as medical treatment.
Whilst the evidence of curfews is mixed, the evidence to a lot of this thing is mixed, but I don't want us to ever look back and say we didn't try, we didn't put everything into this.
But I also think it sends a significant signal about the crisis we're facing.
For these LGAs of concern, exercise will be limited to 1 hour a day. More retail stores will close, including garden centres and businesses selling officeware, hardware and building supplies. And from the 23rd of August, surveillance testing will end due to the strain on pathology labs. A permit system for workers will also be introduced. From next Saturday, authorised workers living in the LGAs of concern or people travelling into those regions for work must carry a permit. Those travelling outside the LGAs of concern can only continue working if their employers conduct rapid antigen testing or they've had a dose of a vaccine, coronavirus vaccine, by the end of August. And from tomorrow, anyone wishing to travel outside of Sydney into regional New South Wales will be required to get a travel permit. That includes for the Shell Harbour and Central Coast regions.
So the permit system will come up by at least midnight tonight. And as I said earlier, with any of the permits, if they're not available, and if you have a lawful purpose, you can still travel. We won't take action against you for the permits, but people need to remember it's an offence today to leave Greater Sydney to go to regional New South Wales unless you have a reasonable excuse.
Even with all those warnings, people are not listening, as you have mentioned. And of course, Devika, yes, it is very devastating and very sad with the New South Wales residents. But when you look at New South Wales, I know when the outbreak was in out of control in India, people were saying all these things. It's happening right here. right next door to us. And of course, that unbelievable that a Queensland man travelled all the way from here to Sydney to arrange for that protest march. Well, what are the states calling for at this point in time as well? Because the numbers and the lines and the queues are just getting bigger.
Across the nation, the vaccine rollout is rapidly picking up pace.
How are you feeling about getting vaccinated today?
Very good. Just want to move on from lockdown, that's all.
More than 300,000 people were inoculated yesterday. More than 1.7 million received a jab in the past 7 days and more than 5.6 million in the past 4 weeks. In total, more than 1 in 2 Australians aged 16 and over have now had at least one dose, though some are still annoyed by how long it's taken.
I'm not the biggest fan of the Prime Minister, to be honest with you, but it is what it is.
The medical regulator has also approved a new drug which can reduce the severity of COVID-19 in some patients. And Scott Morrison claims everyone should be confident that normal life can safely resume once 70 or 80% of us have been vaccinated.
If you are vaccinated, then you can be exempted from various restrictions that may still more broadly remain in place.
But children aged 12 to 15 are not included in Australia's targets.
Scott Morrison's refusal to include children in the vaccination targets is just about setting targets that are easier to reach.
With recent cases of the virus spreading in schools, there's a push to make kids more of a priority.
We know Australians are dangerously exposed to this Delta variant because we've had the slowest vaccine rollout in the developed world.
There has been some discussion about giving high school students at least one dose by the end of the year, and the Pfizer jab is approved for children aged 12 and up. But right now, it's the situation in Sydney that's most concerning our nation's leaders. From Thursday, Western Australia will classify all of New South Wales as extreme risk, cutting off almost all travel.
That means West Australians who want to come home need to do so now.
Unless Sydney case numbers fall, domestic borders look likely to remain shut.
We cannot go for elimination. What we are seeking to do right now is to suppress the virus.
The Morrison government's warning it could cut off financial support to states that don't open up once vaccination targets are hit.
1, 2, 3.
But with a federal election on the horizon, it does seem unlikely that they'd actually follow through. James Glenday, AB.
And of course, looking at those targets, because the federal government has to wake in with the states, and the states in delivering that and reaching that target. And of course, once the target is reached, the funding models will change, and that is something else that needs to be considered as well. Well, right now, as I was talking before, we're reporting about the situation in New Zealand. Let's take a look at that situation there.
We now know that we are dealing with an outbreak that isn't just isolated to Auckland, with cases now in Wellington, albeit linked. While they were picked up quickly, they came into contact with a case on Sunday, and obviously we were in lockdown by Tuesday. We still need to be very vigilant. Our contact tracing shows, in fact, we have hundreds who were at locations of interest, who we know live and are isolating outside of Auckland. That includes in the South Island. So we do have people who have been at locations of interest across the country. Finally, because we are only in day 3 of our lockdown, when we are finding positive cases, their infectious period is still reaching back into the period before we went into lockdown. Now, soon that should stop being the case, and that will definitely help us get the outbreak under control and help us determine the edges of the outbreak. Till then, though, we just don't quite know the full scale of this Delta outbreak. All in all, that tells us we need to continue to be cautious and that we need more time before we have the complete picture we need to change our settings. So on that basis, the Director General of Health has recommended and Cabinet has agreed to keep all of New Zealand at level 4 until 11:59 p.m. on Tuesday, August 24. With a Cabinet meeting on Monday for us to determine the next steps thereafter.
So they got the report there from New Zealand, and they are coming in quick. They're coming in hard. As I was mentioning in the very beginning part, that our island nation close to us, Fiji, and the reports that have come from a family where there's been 2 deaths. Some people very close to us, with people we know, and that's devastating news. It is also getting out of control there, and the Fijian government's stance is that they will not have a curfew or a complete lockdown, but they will move towards a mass vaccination program so that everyone is vaccinated. But at the moment, the crisis is there, is out of control there as well. People, visiting someone in the hospital and they contract the disease as well. So, once again, we've been trying to tell people, stay put wherever you are at this point in time. Now is not the time to be moving about. And of course, when there are people in hospital, let them recover. It's not a time to go visit, as the tradition is within our community, our culture, that if someone's in hospital, all the family and relatives and friends, they all like to go to the hospital to see them. It is a tradition which sort of needs to change with time. Well, right now, the last news before we go into our PIO TV. The PIO TV, which we have been running for whole of this week, is a collaboration between PIO TV in Delhi and Australian Indian Radio. PIO TV has been running for quite some time, run by my friend Muniz Gupta, who has been here a few times, and he's been a very close advocate of Gopio, and he also is part of the NRIPIO Chamber of Commerce, where we have worked together, and his dad Kayan Gupta is the editor, Ankita is the presenter, and I'd like to see and get your feedback and whether we keep that segment. And I personally believe it is quite good, because it brings us some more news and things from the different part of the world in a slightly different format as well, which we can see. But right now, before we go to that segment, here's the last report for today, when there is a fatal crash and fire in Melbourne. Apparently the car hit a pole and just exploded on impact. Emergency services are trying to get the fire under control.
The car was probably speeding. I think it was flying down along this road here. It's had a flat tyre, it's lost control. I don't know if it's stolen car, I'm not sure, but it's hit the pole and it's exploded on impact. The car was in flames within seconds, so the driver's definitely still in the car.
So there you go, hit the pole and exploded on impact. And of course, that is very, very bad news coming out of Melbourne, if they were not bad news enough. Well, right now it's time to go to our PIO TV and the news there, Indian news for today.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you glimpses of the changing India and the growing engagement of the Indian diaspora with India. In our first story, the United Nations Security Council has for the first time unanimously adopted a peacekeeping resolution under the presidency of India. The resolution will ensure accountability for crimes committed against UN peacekeepers. Under the presidency of India, the United Nations Security Council on 18th August unanimously adopted for the first time a resolution for ensuring accountability for crimes committed against UN peacekeepers. It also called on member states hosting peacekeeping operations to bring to justice perpetrators responsible for killing and committing acts of violence against the Blue Helmets. Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar chaired an open debate with the theme of protecting the protectors, technology and peacekeeping, the second signature event held as India presides over the powerful 15-member UN body for the month of August 2021. At the meeting, two significant outcome documents were unanimously adopted and overwhelmingly supported: a presidential statement on peacekeeping and technology and a resolution on accountability of crimes against UN peacekeepers. The presidential statement, or the PRST, for the first time focused exclusively on utilizing technology to assist peacekeepers. The resolution urges all parties to armed conflict to fully respect their obligations under international law. During the signature event, India, in coordination with the UN, also rolled out a unique technology platform called UniteAware that helps increase situational awareness and provides terrain-related information to peacekeepers. India partnered with the UN and contributed $1.64 million in the rollout of the UniteAware platform. As the Afghan crisis deepens with Taliban now running the country, India and America are deeply concerned and will coordinate efforts closely. Amid the fast unfolding situation in Afghanistan, Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and US Secretary of State Antony Blinken discussed the crisis in the war-torn country. This was the second phone call between the two top officials since the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan on 15th August 2021. India and the US are strategic partners, especially in the Indo-Pacific. The US State Department spokesman Ned Price confirmed that the two ministers agreed to continue coordination on Afghanistan. The call comes as several countries, including the US and India, are evacuating their citizens from the country. Blinken himself has termed the phone call with Jaishankar as productive. The Afghan crisis has put the future of many students studying in Indian universities into jeopardy. Students are fanatically trying for Indian visa. Thousands of Afghanistan students studying in Indian universities consist of women as well. They feel that the change in the political system in the country to a conservative Islamist government under Taliban could shatter their dreams of good education. Many girl students doubt how they will be able to complete their education. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, many Afghan students returned home and were studying online. With change in the political scenario, they are stuck there. Some, especially women, fear they may be asked to discontinue education with or in India. One example is Afghan students at South Asian universities in Delhi, where at least 26 MA students and 5 to 6 PhD students had visas under process or could not apply as the Indian embassy evacuated its officials from Kabul. Meanwhile, Indian embassy officials shifted about 60 Hindus and Sikhs on 19th August from Gurdwara Singh Sabha in Karte Parwan, Afghanistan, to a safe place for evacuation to India. For nearly 1 week, about 285 Sikhs and Hindus, most of them with documents from Ghazni, Jalalabad and Kabul, had taken shelter at the Gurdwara after the Taliban took control of Afghanistan's capital. Top leaders of India's opposition parties are meeting on 20th August to create a joint front against the Modi government in major elections due in 2022 in important states. Indian National Congress Party acting President Sonia Gandhi has called for a virtual meeting of top opposition leaders, including some chief ministers. Many are expected to attend the meeting on late afternoon of 20th of August. The objective is to evolve a common strategy against the NDA government led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Confirmed attendees include Nationalist Congress Party President Sharad Pawar and to West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, Maharashtra CM Uddhav Thackeray and Tamil Nadu CM M.K. Stalin. 20th August is also the birth anniversary of former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. Sonia is trying to forge a united front against Modi on key issues for the upcoming assembly elections. The US seems not interested in free trade pact with India for now, but Delhi getting ready for many agreements, including with Australia, UK, UAE and more. The US administration under President Joe Biden seems to have conveyed to India they are not interested in a free trade agreement. Indian Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal has said that hopes of an India-US trade pact are off the table for now. The minister also said that India has begun working on an FTA with Bangladesh and is close to sealing an early harvest deal with Australia, which has almost agreed on the matter, with a similar deal being worked out with the UK. In an interaction with exporters, Goyal said, quote, "The US as of now has kind of indicated that they are not looking for new trade agreements, but we will look at working with them on market access issues on both sides." End quote. He said that Australia is first on the list, next UK and then the UAE. Indian billionaire Mukesh Ambani seems focused on taking his digital media distribution business to new heights. Reliance-owned Viacom 18 has secured media rights for Italian Football League Serie A. Indian infotainment networks are acquiring the biggest sports, media and entertainment events. It is a sign of explosion of the digital marketplace in India and the subcontinent of nearly 2 billion people. A mega sporting event has been acquired by Indian billionaire Mukesh Ambani controlled entertainment network Viacom 18. The TV network has acquired the media rights, both broadcast and digital, for Italy's popular football league, Serie A, putting in place one of India's most formidable sports play. The rights are for the Indian subcontinent for the next 3 seasons. This comes close on the heels of the company acquiring rights for Spanish Football League, La Liga, ATP Masters and Abu Dhabi T10. Like other properties, Serie A, which kicks off on 21st August, will also be available live across Woot, Viacom 18's linear TV channels and Jio. India now ranks second in Global Cryptocurrency Adoption Index. Vietnam is at the top. Here is a report. According to the 2021 Global Crypto Adoption Index by blockchain data platform Chain Analysis, India now ranks second in the Global Cryptocurrency Adoption Index, only behind Vietnam. The worldwide adoption of cryptocurrency has grown by over 2,300% since the third quarter of 2019 and over 881% in the last year. The report said that their research suggests that reasons for this increased adoption differ around the world. In emerging markets, many turn to cryptocurrency to preserve their savings in the face of currency devaluation, send and receive remittances and carry out business transactions. However, adoption in North America, Western Europe and Eastern Asia over the last year has been powered largely by institutional investment, the report said. Most of the top 20 countries are developing countries like Tanzania, Togo and Kenya. Bollywood extravaganza hits the big screens after COVID-19 second wave. Khiladi Akshay Kumar's action thriller Bell Bottom was released theatrically on 19th August. Here is our review. Bollywood Khiladi Akshay Kumar's latest flick Bell Bottom is out in theatres. And that by itself is an achievement, as it's the first big flick to be in cinemas after the devastating second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. A serious subject, the movie is a racy, pacey entertainer from start to finish. Akshay Kumar is a raw agent, code name Bell Bottom. He wears the massively flared trousers, also known as bell bottom, that was sported by fashionistas and plebs alike in the 70s and 80s. Akshay does the bell bottoms with cheerful comic book flair. And that's what makes the otherwise serious subject into a cool action flick. The story is a fictional one with action based on a clutch of real-life hijackings of Indian Airlines planes in the 80s. Akshay, as a good lead, as usual, is supported by a good cast. The only guy who can save the Indian hostages is their star analyst, Bell Bottom, played by Akshay. The hero then delivers handsomely, leading his band of braves into battle. Huma Qureshi also gets a part in the action. Bell Bottom is not complicated, all cool and easy, fun and games and tons of Bollywood-style action. Overall, the film makes for a fun outing during these otherwise grim COVID-19 times. That's all for this bulletin of Daily India Report. Thank you for watching.
So there you go. That's our Daily India Report from PIO TV. I'd like to see what your thoughts are on that. And right now, we'll take a look at some of the functions and events that are taking place. As we know, there have been many functions and events that have been put on hold, meaning that they have either been postponed or not happening at all. So, it's time to very quickly look at what's happening at this point in time. So, Arpan, this is going to be taking place on 4th of September, and it is a very good concert there run by Nimita from the Nritya Bharatiya School of Dance. And next up, Benyo Diwali. Of course, this is at the Benyo Grandstand, and on Saturday, 30th of October. Contact the vendor Bains for any performances or stalls that you want to have there. Brisbane Indian Times and Australian Indian Radio will be supporting this event as well. Well, BSK Cup, as we know, it is in its 9th annual cup, and the series have begun, and it will keep going all Sundays at this point in time until there's any restrictions on play. But for now, it is all happening. So for further information, you can contact Satish Rajendran. And of course, the Federation of Indian Communities of Queensland and the annual Diwali function will be on 5th of November at King George Square. And it's, as usual, a free entry, dance, music and food. It is supported by Queensland Government and, of course, Brisbane City Council and Springfield City Group and CKU University are platinum sponsors, and media partners are Australian Indian Radio and Brisbane Indian Times. Arya Pratinidhi Sabha of Queensland, Gayatri the Mahayagna, and this is taking place, of course, the Sunday, 22nd, which is tomorrow, and it is from 10 a.m. till 12. And this is at 198 Leah Road in Willawong. Next up, India Day Fair. Of course, India Day Fair is now on 23rd of October. And the reason for the change was, of course, we all know that due to COVID and, of course, those restrictions, we could not have a large-scale event. And it has now been shifted to the 23rd. It will take place at Suncorp Piazza in South Bank. And, of course, beginning at 10 a.m. and going till 7 p.m. And it will have lots of functions and events throughout the day to complement. And we'd like to thank all our sponsors who have stood by us and in complimenting. Of course, on the 15th of August, we did have a very quickly arranged dinner party which got completely sold out. And with that, we are still getting so many complaints about people who missed out. So next time, we'll probably go for a bigger venue. Janamastami, well, Krishna's birthday, which is the 31st August. This one here is from ISKCON, but we'll look at some of the other religious institutions and look at their dates. Well, of course, this is the Onambon Kairali Brisbane, and of course, their function is taking place on the 11th of September and at the Unides Centre. Bookings are available through kairalibrisbane.org.au. And next up is Sukhino Bhavanto and Lalita Kalyala School of Bharatnatyam, their annual concert, which is now on the 28th of August and is again a ticketed event. So there's a QR code there. You can register for the event. Boulevard. Dinner and dance Fiji Indio Fusion, and this was taking place once again at Unides Community Centre on 4th of September. Tickets are $65, early bird $60. Please contact one of the organisers to support this worthy cause as well. Ravishing fascinators, the big day is tonight. Yes, it's all happening tonight. The glamour and glitz in the blingy style function. And of course, the pre-show event for VVIPs will begin at 4:30. And the general ticket entry is from 6 p.m. at the Royal International Convention Centre in the RNA Showgrounds. And of course, the Multicultural Festival by St. Thomas and this group every year runs this function, and this year it's on the 28th of August from 10:30 till 7 p.m. So at the Middle Park Road in Hillcrest, please do come and attend this function as well. Well, right now, the musical event has now been shifted to the 13th of November. So, Mithun and Bondita, and the venue remains the same. Brisbane Indian Times and Australian Indian Radio also supporting the event. It will be a wonderful event. Please do, if you haven't already registered, register. People who had already registered, your tickets will still be valid, and it is on that new date now. Next up, Sri Vishnu Maya Mandir, 86 Scott Lane, North Maclean. Sri Krishna Janmashtami by His Holiness Dharam Guru Pandit Tripathi Ji. Everyone is invited to please join in this celebration starting from Monday 23rd till Monday 30th of August. So the timings will be Monday to Friday 6:30 p.m. onwards, Saturday and Sunday 5 p.m. onwards. Food will be provided daily. Havan will be performed on Saturday 28th August at 5 p.m. Sri Krishna Ji Ka Janam and Utsav at 8 p.m. on Monday 30th of August. In the celebrations you will find Kirtan, Sohar and Garba, then Bhog, Aarti and Mahaprasad. If you are wishing to sponsor the food, the sponsorship is only $400. Please contact Devika or any of the organizers at Sri Vishnu Maya Mandir. And Janmashtami, of course, 28th of August, this will be at Sri Selva Vinayakar Temple, which is at 4915 Mount Lynchie Highway, South Maclean. And for this celebration, it is now, this is taking place on the 28th, which is a Sunday, from 10:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. So, you know, if you're wishing to take part in that, you are quite welcome to do so. The numbers are there as well. You can contact Guinness or Rajesh on 0415 685 462. And of course, Simply Human, celebrating superheroes without capes. This is again, I shifted a new date. The date now is the 9th of October. So please check your dates. If you had already booked through Try Bookings, your tickets will still be valid. You will probably get a notification. But if you are wishing to book once again, and if you haven't booked, and if now you are able to come, the new date is 9th of October. So we'd like to see you all there as well. And an evening of soulful music to raise funds for COVID-19 relief in India. The classics and the classicals. The iconic songs of Indian cinema based on ragas. Saturday 28th August 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. Unides Community Centre in Woolawang. Tickets are all sold about www.premiumtickets.com. So, you know, for further information you can contact Sachin on 0498 656 165. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you are, up to date on Australian Indian Radio. And as you can see, there's lots of functions and events once again taking place. And, well, Devika has given us as the PIO TV and thumbs up as well. So, good on you. Thank you so much for that. And we will keep going with that, as long as they keep supplying the contents from there. And it is very good. And, this is the kind of relationship that we have built over the years with many people. So, Munish Gupta, who is a very close friend of ours, and Kayan Gupta Sahab, the wonderful family there from Delhi, who are very associated with the PIO, and having done quite a lot here with us, and of course lots in Africa, and of course we have met in all kinds of places worldwide, Trinidad, Suriname, in Mauritius and everywhere. So this is a collaboration between PIO TV and Australian Indian Radio to bring to you daily Indian news. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all I have for you in this segment. You have a wonderful weekend. As we know that restrictions are easing, but please, I know that Janmashtami is beginning. People will be going out to temples and everywhere. Please, please, please make sure that you observe those rules, because, if you don't, then the organizers, the functions and the venues might get in trouble as well. You might get in trouble as well. But it is also common sense, and it is in the best interest of the community. So whatever you were doing, the restrictions and the rules that you have been asked to observe are in the best interest of the wider community, and together we can all do this. If we all work together, we will curb this cycle. And, Queensland government has done quite a lot, and we are fortunate that we are able to do things that many other states are unable to do at this point in time. So, it is all due to those strict measures that had been put in place. So it is up to us to make sure that we do our part and observe those rules. So until Monday, is goodbye from me. We'll see you then. Remain safe. Have a wonderful weekend.